State Control Britain. Here we are live, 7 p.m. from State Control Britain, where there's two-tier justice without a shadow of a doubt. You can't tweet what you think. You can't hold a flag that's British. And we've got a Prime Minister who just wants a digital ID to enslave us and control us all. He's the most unliked Prime Minister we've ever had in Britain. There you go. So got that off my chest. Richard, how are you?
Very well, Stephen. How are you?
Well, I'm okay because I'm pretty chipper. I find what's happening in Britain unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. People being detained and saying what they think about, you know, Keir Starmer and waving a flag. 16-year-old girl waving a British flag, and policemen just come in and ripping it off from her. It's just wrong at the moment. So anyway, we talk about food and we talk about carnivore and we talk about keto, and we've got some questions. I know you keep away from it, Richard, don't you, at the moment? Because
look, if I get into it, there's so much going on. I think we're on the brink of a civil war. But yeah, let's not. Do you know? And there's so much. I don't know if you're following 3i Atlas and everything else going on with this, but it's yeah. I don't know who knows what's going on in the world these days. One thing is there, I think, to divert us from another, and all of this, I think, is planned.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We've known this since the vid in regards to this.
Yes.
Anyway,
let's move on.
Let's not get banned again.
Yes. So this one I think is aimed at you. It's from Bill Vega. By the way, if you want to give us a super chat and support us while we're still able to be on YouTube, that really helps the station. But anyway, Bill Vega, thanks for the advice last week, fellas. I've got the Keto-Pro MCT coming, medium chain triglycerides, not the monocarboxylate transporters. Before I grab the other bits for my burping stroke gas, is Tudka a better option than taurine? Don't understand the difference.
So Tudka is basically the UDCA part with the taurine, which occurs through the production of the bile. You can try that. I mean, taurine is my thing with these supplements in regards to certain supplements. When we consume them, we skip the parts of the pathway prior, and taurine, I think, in my opinion, is probably a better supplement in regards to stimulating and fulfilling the full pathway. You can try it. It's certainly, I mean, it could very well help, but Tudka is basically taurine bind to the UDCA. I can never remember what the UDCA stands for, but it's, yeah. So you could give it a try, Bill, but taurine, we know, works. You know, taurine is there to increase the acidity in the gut and help us partially digest those, you know, the proteins in the gut and stimulate the bile flow, which then the proteins and the fats will pass on to for the pancreatic enzymes or the bile to go to work on, basically to emulsify the surface area. So it basically increases the surface area so the pancreatic enzymes can then go to work at the next part of the digestive process. But you can try Tudka, but first and foremost, before you go supplementing with the taurine or the Tudka, you can do the stomach acid test, which again, for those who missed last week, it's basically, oh my goodness, bicarb of soda, around half a teaspoon to a teaspoon in probably about this much of water. So a very, very small amount of water. You drink that and you time to see how long it takes you to burp. If you burp quickly, then that's it. Yeah, I can never remember that. But of all the things we can remember, there's always some that we cannot.
Yes.
Every day's a learning day. Yeah, where were we? So basically we do the burp test. If you burp within 3 minutes, then your acidity is pretty good. Any longer than 3, and it means that we need to look at increasing the acidity in the gut, Bill. So give that a try and let us know how you get on.
Excellent. That's really good. Good start, Richard. Well done. We're off to a flyer. Don't forget to do a super chat if you want to bump your question up to the top. You can do that. If you want to support the channel, a super sticker. I've been told by a few people that last week they tried to make payments and they couldn't. Yep. And also Lee Copus, they tried to get it on Lee's channel. So don't give up. YouTube don't want us to get any money. Yep, absolutely. There's been a big video out from YouTube saying that they deliberately took down at least 1,000 videos because they didn't want the content to get out there. But anyway, right, That's a real thing. Crazy Couple is asking this question. Good evening, guys. Is it a good idea to start taking Lugol's iodine drops?
Well, it depends on whether you're deficient. Look, it's if you're deficient in iodine or iodine, depending on which part of the world you come from, then it may be beneficial. Now, what many people say is what you don't use passes out. And yes, but it's not strictly true in regards to maybe not causing problems also. It can cause issues with thyroid if you have a plentiful supply. So test first. There is a simple test. Steve can get into the nitty gritty in regard to the best one to perform, but you can do an iodine clearance test on the skin, which basically means that you put a little bit of iodine on the skin and you see how long it takes for your body to absorb it. If it doesn't, then you're not devoid. If it does it very quickly, then it's a pretty clear signal that you may be devoid. An iodine clearance test, which I'll let Steve explain. That would probably be the best protocol, but it does involve going to the doctor. Or can you do them at home, Steve? Can you do an iodine clearance test at home? I've never seen one.
Depends where you are. You can get them in the States, but yeah, you have to ask your GP in the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, basically what it is they give you, just to make sums easy, because we've got different measurements, they give you a tablet or a drink with 100 units of iodine in. And then over the next 24 hours, they measure your urine. And if there's 100 units of iodine in your urine, it pretty indicates that you didn't need the supplement. That's what it says. But you can also have the yang of it. I mean, I had somebody who was in Tennessee, who's actually going to go out to the Spain Festival, by the way. And I think it was her. No, it wasn't. Actually, it was a different client. And they messaged me to say, I definitely am low in iodine because I've not even had the result, but I've taken the tablet and I feel amazing. So you can test, not guess. You can do that. But as Richard quite rightly said, I mean, you could just take it and see what happens. You will urinate it out, but why not just test and see if you really need it?
Spot on. Oh,
thank you very much, sir. Thank you. What's the next question? I'm miles behind with the questions because I was listening to your answer. Oh, here we go. MJ. Well, I was. It's an education for me as well. I like listening to you, Richard. So MJ says, I eat 1.5 kilograms of mince, extra beef fat, few eggs every day. This week I ate 2 kilograms a day and more eggs. I lost a pound each day. And then there's a question mark. Thermogenesis. I'm about 12% body fat. May add carbs around training.
Yeah, MJ, fantastic. Look, that is proof positive, isn't it? That it's not the calories. We keep talking about calories, and yes, units of energy do matter. We can consume more than our demand, but the beauty of being keto and carnivore is we have a buffer because we elicit a very low insulin response, and it's insulin that is going to be the primary driver of that fat storage. Yes, we elicit an insulin response with protein, but protein has a high thermic effect of around 25 to 35%, which basically means that 25 to 35% of the units of energy within the protein that you're consuming are going to be used to process the proteins. Carbs and fats are a lot lower. So in basic terms, MJ, the more protein you eat, the more energy that your body's going to use to process that protein. So it isn't just to do with the calories. It's calories is the C word, isn't it? One of the swear words within the carnivore community. But look, they do matter. I mean, if I want to gain weight, I simply eat more. But for me to gain weight, I need to eat thousands and thousands of calorie equivalent. I can consume far more calories from meat and fat than I can from carb. Eating 2,700 calories on a carb lifestyle, on a healthy carb lifestyle, led me to becoming clinically obese and type 2 diabetic and so on and so forth. Consuming far more caloric value from meat and fat allowed me to reverse that, lose the weight and maintain a single figure body fat. 12% is incredible. But yes, essentially, it's to do with the thermogenic effect, if you like, of the protein. If you tried mixing the days with lowering the fat and dropping the protein on some days, you'll find that this will periodically allow you to lose a little bit more body fat. Should that be the goal? But 12% is a healthy place to be. May add carbs around training. Why? You really don't need to. Look, it's especially if bodybuilding or weight training, MJ, is your goal, which, looking at the picture, I'm assuming it is. You look incredibly fit and healthy, very ripped and lean. We don't need carbs to lift. Carbs fuel the glycolysis or the glycolytic energy system. So we never tap into them during a weightlifting session, not to the degree that one would think. When we lift the heavy weights, we hit the PC system, the phosphocreatine energy system. So basically, we reduce ATP down to ADP, and then the creatine in the body and the creatine that we supplement with will replace the phosphate, and it becomes ATP again. So supplementing with creatine will allow us to take that 10 to 15 second PC system up to maybe 30 or 40, which is plenty for lifting heavy. Beyond that, we go into the glycolytic energy system, which we're not going to do an awful lot of unless we are tapping into like the high rocks, high intensity type training. But then, as I've shown numerous amounts of times with continuous blood glucose monitors, the body will create the glucose that it needs. And in fact, and this is a very important point to anyone that's listening, your body becomes incredibly adapted. So you become so adapted that you lose the ability to feel the burn in the muscle. Now, we think of the burn as being really effective, and we think, I'm chasing the burn. But the burn shows an inefficiency to buffer the hydrogen ions. What you and I, MJ, can have the ability to do is recycle the lactate. It's not lactic acid. Lactic acid does not exist in the human body. It's lactate. Lactate from the muscle is sent to the liver, goes through pyruvate and through a reverse glycolysis pathway called gluconeogenesis, where we make glucose. That glucose is sent back to the muscle at a higher rate than you can fill with carbohydrate. So now, instead of getting to 10 reps where your arms are burning, you end up getting to 15 or 12 or whatever, and then you just can't do any more because there's no energy left in there. But the percentage is higher in regards to the return, so we can do higher reps, but we don't feel the burn. This is why people living keto and carnivore don't feel the burn. We're incredibly adapted. To put the carb in, the only way that the carb would benefit is by adding water to the muscle, which would add leverage, which would allow you to lift more, which is how anabolic steroids work, like Dianabol, for example. They'll fill you with water. You become incredibly strong because of the leverage. And then when you stop the Dianabol, all the water goes, and then you lose all your strength, which basically means that anabolic has not built any muscle. It was purely the water. So you could lift more in theory by adding carb for that benefit, but you can do this with creatine, and you can do it with salt manipulation. There's no harm to putting in should you wish to do so. To a degree, the body can cope with a certain amount of this, but the less that you can consume, the more that you're going to be adapted. Now, the only time that I would preference using any form of carbohydrate in athletic performance would be for extended endurance sports. I'm talking like an Ironman. I wouldn't even put them in for a shorter triathlon, like a 70.3. But experiment, see how you feel, MJ. What you'll find, I think, is that you may get a mental boost initially, placebo effect, which, if that works, fantastic. But what you'll find after is you'll start to ache more. You'll start to ache after the sessions. You'll start to get aches and pains, what feels like the joints, muscular aches and pains, and you'll probably end up coming back away from them again. But feel free to try, by all means.
Brilliant. MJ has put a super sticker up of £4.99, which is very, very kind of you. So thank you so much. Yeah, every little helps. It's one of those things that we do talk about it, but yeah. Right, let's have a look at the next thing. Right, can carnivore reverse cataracts? Thanks, guys. That's from Paul. Paul, I had cataracts, and I had an operation. This was before I'd been carnivore and before keto. So I can't tell you from first-hand experience, and I certainly can't tell you from any people that I've coached. I would say it definitely seems to stop the onset of it. Because everyone that I've ever spoken to that's had cataracts has had a fair amount of glucose in their diet. People that have been carnivore long-term don't seem to get it. And long-term keto followers don't seem to get it. I mean, it is still glycation that is causing the most of it. So, yeah, I don't think it will reverse it, I'm afraid. But I think there's a strong possibility it would slow the progression and I think at some point stop any progression. But once you've got it, I think pretty tricky to reverse it. I don't know what you think, Richard.
Yeah, look, it's a tough one. I've worked with clients who claim to see some resolution, but how you measure that, this is purely down to their own impressions. Others have not, unfortunately. But it's, as you say, it is glycation. It's that glucose molecule binding to the proteins, creating that amidori product, the advanced glycation end products, and that basically causing issues with glycation, on the eye. And it can happen anywhere. Obviously, this glycation happens throughout the body. But if you live a lifestyle that is low of glucose or carbohydrate, because all carbohydrate breaks down into glucose. Somebody messaged me privately recently, and we forget, because we're in the community where we understand that all carbs break down into glucose, and I think we just assume that everybody understands that. So I think sometimes I need to just reinforce some of the things with that extra information. But all carbs break down into glucose. Carbs are going to cause glycation. So yeah, I agree with you. To be honest, Steve, I don't know, but it's certainly not going to cause. It's going to be the best protocol moving forward to help any further deterioration and possibly prevent it occurring in the first place. But in regards to reversing, I'm still unclear.
Yeah. Like people's vision, a little bit unclear. Right. Herbert has very kindly given a €5. I think it's €5. Yeah, thank you. He's a good supporter and member of our school community as well, which is excellent support. Thank you very much. Here's another one from Izzy. Is a 5.5 A1C after 6 months on carnivore too high? Could this mean I'm eating too much protein? Where was it 6 months ago? That's the first thing, because it's always good to look at trends. That's the first thing. Secondly, what was your average blood glucose on your continual glucose monitor or on your capillary testing, which is when you do your finger pricking? What was it there? Because the A1C is notoriously unreliable, because it's factored into other things like the life of your red blood cells. 5.5, no, I don't think it's particularly high. I would be very interested in your actual average blood glucose from your daily readings. That would be the thing that I would be going by, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think it's high. I mean, it's when I use a continuous blood glucose monitor, mine averages at 5.5. So it's I don't think that's high at all.
No, I don't. That's a nice, easy question, isn't it? Right.
And sorry, Steve. Could this mean I'm eating too much protein? Look, I really think that it's very difficult to eat too much protein. Protein is the one thing that we shouldn't fear. I think it's incredibly important to make sure we're consuming enough. And most people on a keto carnivore lifestyle or keto and even carnivore don't consume enough protein. Especially, I find women that I work with, they many of them consume one meal a day, and within that one meal, it's difficult for them to consume. And there's our good friend Carnivore Muscle Jonathan. Great to see you on board. It's difficult to obtain that food, isn't it? That amount of protein in one sitting. I do, but I like to eat a lot, so that's why we generally recommend women consume 2 to 3 meals in order
protein doesn't glycate. I mean, that's the thing.
Glycation
is glucose sticking to proteins, not the other way around. And those that think, dietary protein turns into glucose, that just doesn't happen. Which we've gone through. Yeah, steak doesn't become cake. We've done presentations. We've had people with amino acids that are doubly labeled, so they're traced from ingestion all the way through the body. We've seen it. I've put 2 massive studies in, well-respected studies, where they've tried to look at that. The first study was trying to prove that 50% of protein turned to glucose. So their bias was that's what they wanted to show. To the point where their baseline was, if I remember rightly, 56 grams of protein. 56 grams of glucose was ingested, and then they took readings. And this is how confident they were that 56 grams of glucose was going to be the response from the protein, about 50% of the protein, because they gave the people, I think it was 112 grams of protein thinking that it would be the equivalent of 56 grams of glucose, and it wasn't. It was a flat line. None of the protein turned into glucose. And then when that was replicated, that study, they really went to town, and they did this doubly labeling, which is where they actually tag the amino acids from the eggs, and they follow it through. And then they do what's called a time flux measurement, where every single minute the blood glucose was looked. They were so convinced that they were going to prove that protein put your blood glucose up, and it fell flat. Absolutely. It was a sort of 2% of your blood was coming from the protein, 2%. So yeah, I put those studies out on my Substack, and it's there for everybody to see. So, right, let's do the next question before I blow my top having a rant. This is an interesting one because I've had this in the week with a really successful member of Skool who put a wonderful comment about my work with her on her thyroid. Is it an urban myth that thyroid supplementation risks permanently shutting down the gland? Right, there's so much nuance to this. But let's firstly talk about a success. So they were really worried about their thyroid hormones. So they sent the full panel, but they also were talking about their clinical presentation, how they felt, how they looked, all their energy, their temperature management, blah, blah, blah. And we got to the bottom of what the problem was. And I think the T3 went up 5-fold, I think, with a couple of interventions. And one of those was natural desiccated thyroid supplement. Now, what happened? What happened next? Well, TSH went down considerably. So you could be looking at the dosage and saying, well, maybe the dosage of the supplement was a little bit too high, and the thyroid wasn't having to work, or the pituitary gland picked it up and thought, well, we don't have to push the thyroid. So there's nuance to this. It's very unlikely anything will shut the body down, but the body is also smart. So if you take over the role and you give it everything and do everything, then it's going to say, well, we don't need to put any substrate in. We don't need to do this, don't need to do that. But I've never seen it actually happen. And the reason I said that was interesting, and that's the closest I've ever seen to not shutting down, but a good result, which is the person feeling better and their T3 levels going up, but actually the clinical experience for that person was the important thing. They can't believe the difference in their energy and their mindset and all that. So it's a good protocol to follow. So I was quite pleased with the results, because it's ended up being, interesting to watch, but also great to see somebody completely turn everything around to the point where, they're now, they were so sluggish and brain foggy, but now they're volunteering to travel, once a week voluntarily to do a different job, which is a bit more pressing and, a bit more taxing on their brain. So a complete different person we're dealing with in the space of 6 months. Incredible. So that's good. But of course, the alarm bells always ring from the labs when the TSH gets a bit lower. So, yeah, I mean, it's morally unethical to continue doing what you're doing, because you don't want something to shut down. But I've never seen it. 16 years I've been doing this, but it's been low carb, keto and carnivore for the last 11 now. So I've never seen it. But then again, whenever anything like that happens, you change the dosage. So, yeah, I don't think it's an urban myth, but I think mechanistically, I think it makes sense to say that. But I don't think I've ever seen it actually. I don't think I've ever seen anyone on high levels of testosterone in the bodybuilding world. When they come off the performance enhancing drugs, they can't make testosterone anymore. I've not seen that, but maybe Richard has. Well, have you, Richard?
I have indeed.
Oh wow! Okay, cool. There you go.
Yeah, look, I have indeed. I think I agree completely with everything that you said. I think the body is incredibly intuitive. The body wants to heal and repair. I do think if we put something in at this point of the process, then this is, so as you say, if you put in T3, for example, then thyroid stimulating hormone is going to be lower because it doesn't need to produce as much T3. Now, what I've seen in the bodybuilding world with clients is long-term testosterone. So you're talking anabolic abuse. So I mentioned this a couple of times. One of the clients that I work with, his testosterone was shut down for 2 years. basically just nothing, 0 point something, which the lower end of the scale is like 7 or 8, for example. And he was like 0 point something. And that was the case for a number of years, but I managed to get him on to what I'd class as an animal-based, not quite carnivore, but carnivore most of the time, animal-based. And recently, the numbers have started to come back. So, it does show that the body, it hasn't permanently shut down, but it has taken 2 years in order to kickstart this. But, I mean, you're talking many, many years of anabolic abuse. So, I think there is a lot of nuance to this, isn't there? And I think, the older we get, the longer that we've been, abusing the body. And compounds that we consume on a daily basis that we believe to be beneficial are causing issues, like carrots, the vitamin A, for example, and the broccoli, with the sulforaphane, all causing issues with blocking the iodine and using up the T4, for example. We do these things thinking that we're being healthy for 30 odd plus years. And then, we kind of become keto and carnivore and expect them to recover in weeks and months. And the fact is, some of these things I think can take a lot longer. But again, as you say, they haven't permanently shut down that testosterone production, but it has taken a long time in order to kickstart it back again. So, yeah, interesting stuff.
It is interesting, isn't it? And thanks everyone in the chat for moving it along with so many different things that you want to talk about. So it's really good. But when I say about the bodybuilding, I mean, I was a natural, you see. I didn't do any of that stuff. So maybe I wasn't exposed too much. But then when I started doing blood testing, it was really obvious who was juicing and who wasn't, to be honest. So,
but it shuts so many things down in the body. It's and I think there is a place for our good friend Alan Reeves. He openly uses TRT, and he thrives on TRT. My argument would be, well, if now that you're more animal based, maybe your body just doesn't need it, for example. But it's but case in point there, he's supplementing and thrives. But then we don't know what his endogenous production is, So it's there's certainly a place, isn't it, for T3 and testosterone and estrogen replacement. But it's I'm a big believer in giving the body all of the raw materials in order to try to make it yourselves. But there are some situations in which we can't do that because things are maybe too far gone and we need that little kickstart,
Yeah, brilliant. I like this name, Agent 99. It's what we need in state-controlled Britain at the moment, a few Agent 99s, I think. What causes PVD, which is a peripheral vascular disease, intermittent claudication, which is a posh way of saying limping, right leg very painful after 5 to 10 minutes, walking like lactic acid build-up, or lactate build-up, calf feels very hard, thanks. Well, it's caused by arteries narrowing. I mean, that's basically it. So when you walk, your muscles need a little bit more oxygen, and your blood flow is not doing that. So that's a reason. Nothing to do with carnivore. Normally, if you've been a smoker, that's where you would see it first. Diabetes, high blood pressure, all the normal culprits, actually. Obesity, lack of movement can cause it. The calf feeling very hard makes sense because you can't actually relax the muscle, which is why you limp. Normally, what you would be recommended to do is to walk and suck it up, as they say, for 5 to 10 minutes, and the pain sort of tends to lessen. There's no sort of real question there other than, is it a lactic acid buildup? No, that's very, very unlikely. What have you come across this, Richard?
Yeah, look, I mean, when we look at vascular disease in general, it's a number of culprits, isn't it? I mean, fat isn't one of them. Protein isn't one. It's carbohydrate or glucose and things like vegetable oils. Glycation and oxidative stress are causing damage to that arterial wall. Grains in particular, and we know from our good friend Ivor Cummins, who has released information showing that the glycocalyx is completely destroyed when we eat a small bolus of carbohydrate, and it takes 8 to 12 hours to recover. And what do? In our wisdom, we're told to eat little and often, so we eat again and again and again, constantly causing that damage. So what's caused it, my opinion, is diet previously, probably going to be a big contributing factor. Glucose or seed oils. I think that's going to be the two biggest factors. Grains in particular, incredibly damaging. What can we do to help improve it? Yeah, lactic acid, as we said in the earlier question, doesn't exist in the human body. It's lactate. When we become adapted in carnivore, we can recycle that lactate. So if there was an issue there, then we can negate it that way. But we can help increase vasodilation or nitric oxide by becoming ketogenic and carnivore. So if we gravitate into becoming ketogenic and carnivore, and it does take time, it can take 6 to 12 months to fully adapt. That will increase nitric oxide, potent vasodilator. We can also consume supplements in the form of things like citrulline malate, for example, which will help with vasodilation, which could help. Electrolyte supplementation could be beneficial also. And lower insulin resistance. So as we gravitate into keto carnivore, insulin comes down, and that will cause less of that pressure, within the body, because when insulin's elevated, insulin pulls sodium from 4 points in the nephrons and the kidneys back into the blood. So get that in, and wherever sodium goes, water follows, and that leads to further pressure. So look, living this lifestyle, I think long term, you're going to see. I don't know how long you are on your journey. Was it Agent 99?
Yes.
It'd be interesting to pop that in and to find a little bit more about the diet. But coming away from excessively high levels of carbohydrates, I think is going to be beneficial. And the plant compounds, which are going to be higher in toxins, things like spinach, for example, which are going to be very high in oxalates, and turmeric. My advice would be to come away from them, and possibly even remove black pepper to help with the detoxification process, because black pepper blocks phase 2 detoxification in the liver, which helps prevent or stops us from removing those compounds. Andrew Scarborough, a good friend of ours, what's he said there, Steve?
Protein restriction can help to promote healing in the right context, but you need to know what you're doing. I've done it. It was 1 gram of protein per kilogram of lean body weight, which is quite a bit of protein restriction. 4 to 1. Fats to protein, keto diet, only for serious issues. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it would fit for what we were just talking about, but I think that's good information, by the way, that some people can protein restrict and get good results.
Andrew Scarborough, good friend of ours.
Yeah, they're in tonight. It's great, isn't it? So right, if people don't, many people are messaging me what you're on about Skool, so I just share a screen, show you what Skool is. Skool is a community. If you haven't joined already, there's a few people saying how good it is. It is our community where you can join and you can ask lots of questions, which is what we've got here. So it's a bit like sort of Facebook page. But what else is there? Well, there's also a classroom, so you can do lots of courses. There's lots of free ebooks within the courses. The more activity within our group, the further up you go. Or you can do a one-off payment to open up every single area. We've got stuff about thyroid, for instance, free ebooks there, lots of videos, lots of resources about dairy, fruit and veg. And we also have one about protein, problem solving, 3 of my books. When you've been a long time on the channel or in the community, you get 3 of my books to download. And then there's the Fat Club, which is 60 days. Every single day we give you some help. And then the calendar. As you can see, here we are doing a live. We did a live on Monday at 8 p.m. We did a live on Wednesday at 7 p.m. And here we are, we do a 7 p.m. live on YouTube. But the 8 p.m., the 7 and the 8 p.m. are all exclusive to Skool members. So if you want a piece of the action, then all you got to do is join our Skool group. I've got a link to put in the chat. And once you join, that price is guaranteed for the rest of your life. We won't put the prices up. Get in quick, because we are talking about putting the prices up, because we are at least 50% less expensive compared to other like-minded groups. So here we go. Let's do the next thing. The reason I did that with Andrew was because we have a question from Melanie. You see, I've heard you say around 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and that is something we do say as a rule of thumb. So if you want to weigh 140 pounds, then you need to have at least 140 grams of protein and 140 grams of fat as a 1-to-1 ratio by weight, because we don't tend to use calories because that's not a very good metric, but weight is a very good metric. Why is it a good metric? Well, let's look. If we go on the scale, okay, and we consume something that weighs a pound, you will increase your weights by a pound. It's that simple. All right. So we look at mass in, mass out. We don't talk about calories because calories are a unit of heat, and they have no mass, no rest mass, and all that stuff. But anyway, right. So I guess you're talking ideal body weight. Absolutely. So if you're 300 pounds and you want to weigh 200 pounds, then you do 200 grams of protein, 200 grams of fat. That might get you started. Incidentally, if you are a little bit in the need of losing some body fat, I heard a really great joke the other day. Someone said that when they're out, they don't like all the hard time they get because they've not finished their journey. So they are at 200 pounds, but they want to be 175. And instead of telling people that now, and when they used to tell people that and they said they're going carnivore, they have a really hard time. What they actually now say is, I used to weigh 300 pounds. That's it. And they're like, wow, you look really great. Do what you want. Oh, wow. So I think it's how people contextualize what you're saying. So anyway, right. So I need to lose 60 pounds. Can I eat too much protein? Yes, you can eat too much protein. You can eat too much fat. You can drink too much water. You can have too much sunlight. All these things that are actually good for you. You can do too much because that's what too much means. It's very hard to overeat on carnivore, but it isn't impossible. The reason it's hard to overeat is because most red meat or most of the protein that you get comes with the associated fat, and fat is very satiating. So, for instance, tonight I had 2 sirloins with a beautiful amount of fat on, and I didn't think I could finish it, but I did because it was gorgeous, and obviously I needed it. And you get to actually work out your hunger signals properly and your satiety signals properly when you start eating a species appropriate diet. But yeah, I've gone on too much. I'll let Richard have a go. Sorry.
You've done a Rich.
I did.
I love it. Fantastic. Yeah, spot on. So around what? So we say 1 gram of protein per pound for men, and generally we recommend 0.9 grams per pound for a woman. Now, we do need to work towards ideal body weight, but you can't work towards minus 60 grams straight away. You need to do it in increments of 7. So we work on 7 pounds, i.e. 7 grams. So for example, let me get my calculator out. Let's say, for example, you weighed 140 pounds, which is 10 stone. Multiply that by 0.9, and that is 126. So we would minus 7 from that, 119, and we'd aim for around 119 ballpark. Now this is a generic number that fits most people, but from this, once we have the baseline, then we can adjust, fats and proteins as levers further downstream of that. And what works today doesn't work continuously. So, you can hit that, and it doesn't mean that it's going to work next week and the week after. So there are other things we can do. But when you've dropped that 7 pound, then you adjust by another 7 pound, and you keep on going that way until you plateau for a number of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Once you've plateaued, then you can look at protein sparing, modified fasting, or dropping the protein and increasing the fats. All these additional levers that we can pull and implementing fasting, providing the body is healed. And that is critically important, because I don't like to pull those additional levers until we know that the body is in a good place of health.
Yeah. And Claire is saying, just to clarify, it's per pound of ideal body weight. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. But Richard is just saying that if it's a big leap, then you can transition down to less and less, which makes a bit more sense.
100%. You need to do it in increments of 7. You can go all in, but you're likely to suffer, and it's going to cause problems, and it's not a very nice journey to do. So these are incremental changes. Do it by increments of 7.
Yeah, and that's what we try to get people to do. And let's be honest, there are some people, when we say do a slow transition to carnivore, and they say, yeah, but I used to be a smoker and I gave up like that, or I used to drink too much and I gave up like that. That is a window into their personality. So maybe you need to say, all right, well, look, you're going to transition. It's going to be a bit hard. But if you're one of those that needs to abstain rather than moderate, maybe because of your personality trait, you might need to jump all in. Anyway, Seema, thank you very much for $10. That's very kind of you. Right. There's some good jokes in the chat, but we won't get into the jokes. Right. Aisha, 2 months carnivore here with polycystic ovary syndrome, lost 23 pounds. out of 45 pounds needed. I think that's just a comment. So thank you for that. That's very nice.
It's further down. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a question. Right. When can I expect other symptoms of PCOS to improve, specifically male pattern inappropriate hair growth?
Yeah, brilliant question. Look, Aisha, coming back to what we said earlier, this is very much a journey. It's not a quick fix. It's a lifestyle. These things have taken a lifetime until now to present themselves and to cause issues. We're not going to see complete resolution, in 2 months. I think you've made incredible progress. 23 pounds is fantastic. Keep on going. Who knows, when you get to the 45, you may actually find, and most people do, that there's more to come still. But look, I couldn't commit to a number in regards to this, but what I would say is that most results tend to come within sort of 6 to 12 months as the body tends to adapt deeper into becoming ketogenic. And in the early stages with carnivore, if you've been one of these step change people that Stephen's just mentioned and has just jumped into the deep end and become carnivore, there are lots of problems that are going to occur in the early stages with your gut microbiome and die off and so on and so forth. This is why Stephen and I usually recommend a transition. It's not because we don't want to play towards your strengths and to for you to do the things that you see you do best, which is all or nothing. It's because the body needs time to adjust. So you could still be combating the downstream deleterious effects of going straight in. I don't know if that's the case. I'm just guessing because you've said 2 months carnivore. Look, keep pushing forward. These things will come. Consistency is key.
Brilliant answer. Brilliant. As always, here we go. This is quite a long question, I think. Hi, guys. Lucano Dan. What's the best way to recover after a reaction I had with antibiotics? Vasculitis. The CRP, C-reactive protein, for people who don't know, it's a marker when you have high levels of inflammation in your body. It goes high, 197. I've had diarrhea for 2 months, all test okay now, CRP now at 20. So a drop of a pretty big drop, 170 in your CRP is amazing. But for your reference ranges, it's normally between sort of 0 to 5. This is not unusual to see with people. I've seen some in the hundreds drop down and actually celebrate being at 80 and then celebrating being at 20, because as it comes down, their clinical presentation tends to improve as well. So it is a reasonably good marker of systemic inflammation. But 2 months of diarrhea is not a great sign. So obviously we need to focus on that. What do you think, Richard?
Look, again, consistency is key with this. We can look at supplementing to help move things along, but the gut microbiome, which has been wiped out from the antibiotics, is going to take time to recover. And we do this by consuming the proteins and fats, and we basically feed the correct phylum that we want to. The diarrhea is caused by the die-off. So the antibiotics have caused die-off in the gut, and this is obviously leading to diarrhea. If you're gravitating towards carnivore also, then the sudden increase in fats is going to be problematic as well because of the bile production and reabsorption or lack of. What you'll find, I mean, that's an incredible drop, Steve, isn't it? And as you say, it's before long you'll be celebrating 5 and below, without doubt. Just maintain the lifestyle, eat animal proteins and natural fats. Consistency is key. What I would say is spread the meals out, so you're causing less of a distress to the gastric system with the increase in fat. I would aim for 3, maybe even 4 meals, smaller meals a day. Give the body a chance to adjust, but it will come. What you may find very shortly is that you'll go full circle and you start to suffer with constipation. That's also very common. And again, just remain consistent. You can reduce the fat ever so slightly. That can help in the short term, but I think smaller meals spaced out is going to help with the diarrhea. But incredible with the CRP, and I think the best is yet to come.
That's brilliant. Agent 99, thank you so much for the 5 CA dollars. Canadian dollars. That's really great. Thank you very much, Agent 99. I just love the name. Sometimes the names just grab me. I don't know why, maybe because I'm very immature sometimes. And I needed cheering up tonight, so that's really worked. So So the next question is from Gainer. Neutrophils, white blood cells, our first responders actually in the immune system. 1.9, 10 star 9 L liter serum. Basically, the 1.9 is what we're looking at. Urea is 10.8 millimoles per liter. GP wants to retest. Should I be worried? Sorry, forgot to do the QQQ. New to all this, but you did the QQQ. But anyway, all right, okay.
I think there was another question. I think Gina put a question in earlier.
Right.
So yeah.
And I missed it, which proves why we do it. Yes, so I do apologise if it seems a bit like that. But I've got messages coming in, and we've got it on Twitter, and we've got it on Facebook, and all that. So if I always look a little bit confused, it's because I am. Firstly, the neutrophil level. That's so close to range. I actually wouldn't really worry. Someone's just doing what they've been told to do because it's literally out of range by such a small amount. It will be flagged, but anyone that's been doing it a long time, I mean, it needs literally to be 2, and it's 1.9. So the range is 2 to 7. So it is the low end. But we've also got to remember that the immune system's working 24/7. So it could be a little bit low because it's actually working. So you could have a small infection that it's doing its best job for your immune system. Your count does continue to drop over time from the morning to the evening. So if you've got no symptoms, I wouldn't be worried. Dehydration is also another big thing, especially when we look at the second part of that, where you're talking about urea. If you are on this way of eating, I fully expect the blood urea nitrogen to be slightly high. That people call that the bun reading. Urea is the kidneys byproduct of protein metabolism. It's getting rid of ammonium and basically making sure that you're all fit and healthy. So yes, dehydration tends to put the number up a little bit. If you're eating slightly more protein, put it up a little bit. It's very unlikely it's going to be a reduced kidney function, which is what the doctors will say because it's a little bit higher, but you have to put it in context. So if you're worried about that, you could get what's called a cystatin C test. Don't get a creatinine test. You can, but that will still give you a distorted EGFR. Cystatin C is not dependent on dietary protein intake, and creatinine, of course, is based on muscle metabolism. So I think the best thing to do, if you're worried about those numbers, is not retest on those numbers, but actually get it. And if the worry is that your kidneys are having a problem, then get a cystatin C test, which should be known. Your healthcare provider should know what it is. That's a much better mark of kidney function. And if you get another retest, then yeah, your white blood cells. The thing is, it's interesting. If your neutrophils are slightly low, well, what were all the other ones? So if they've only flagged one white blood cell up, and it could even be a sampling error. Sorry to get into the weeds with it a little bit, but in the old days, the reason it's called a complete blood count is people used to actually look at these things and count them. Well, they don't do that anymore. So how do they work out what your red blood cell or your let's do white blood cells? Well, your white blood cells have a certain amount of commonality. So they go past a scanner, and a scanner will shine a light, a laser at them, basically. And the reflected light, or the amount of transparency of that cell, will tell you roughly what it is. Now, I can't stress enough what roughly means here. So, for instance, let's use the big one, red blood cell and platelets. Now, when it goes through, so you got imagine like a disc goes through, it's quite big. Well, that's a red blood cell. And then a little one goes through, that's a platelet. That's basically what it is. And it's really not very nuanced at all. Sometimes you get big platelets, but they'll be counted as red blood cells because we're not looking at them anymore. And sometimes you get small red blood cells and they're counted as platelets. It really is that basic. So sometimes you could have possibly your neutrophils are right, but they're being counted as leukocytes. So, when it's out of range, that's why I'm like that, because there are definitely things that we could look at a little bit more nuanced. But I would go back to symptoms. So yeah, I did a Richard again, but it is we do full answers, Rich, don't we? We try to 100%. Explain these things. So shall we go on to the next one?
Yeah.
Right,
fire away.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Right. Seema, did we say thank you to Seema? We did. Yes. Right. Okay. Here's the next one. Bethany, do probiotics labeled for respiratory health work? I've been carnivore for 4 years and my asthma got worse. Not sure why.
Interesting. Bethany, just a stab in the dark. Do you eat ground beef or mincemeat? Do you consume maybe fish, dairy, cheese? Do you consume aged meats? All of these can increase histamine massively, which is going to be a huge contributor to respiratory issues, particularly from asthma. Typically, it's thromboxanes and leukotrienes. So seed oils are the biggest contributor in modern life. My little girl used to suffer with asthma. Obviously, when she was born, I was new to my journey. She's 11 now, so I was a couple of years in, but I didn't have the knowledge and the confidence to get my little girl eating this way, because everybody was basically saying that what I was doing was bad for me. So I wanted to delve deeper and make sure that what I was doing was right before I put her on that way. She was consuming compounds that contain seed oils, and that increased the leukotrienes and thromboxanes, which led to asthma. Essentially, when we removed them, then it went away. But histamine response is a big thing, and we can test for this. We can test for histamines. We can test for heparin, and we can test. What's the other one, Steve? My mind is going blank. Trypsin is another one. So heparin and trypsin we can test for together, and that can be an indication of whether it's something that's coming from the food. And that's a simple test that your doctor can do. But histamine response is going to cause that vasoconstriction, which is going to lead to the effect of asthma. So that's what I would think is going on there. Is one of those things that I've mentioned, or all of them. Eggs can also sometimes be problematic to certain people, but it's typically aged meats, ground beef, fish, dairy, aged cheeses, for example. They can be incredibly problematic. Now, if the test that you can do for this without going to the doctor is consuming DAO, diamine oxidase, which is kidney. So you can consume some kidney. Now, the kidney is going to help. The diamine oxidase is going to help anything that is caused from a gastro issue. So anything that is caused from intestinal permeability, the DAO can help with. If it's an issue within the cells, then we need to increase something called HNMT, histamine N-methyltransferase, and we do this by increasing SAMe, which we do by adding in some organ meats in the form of liver, ox liver or lamb liver. The vitamins in there, the B2, the B3, the B6, B9, B12, all of these will help increase SAMe, which will allow HNMT basically to lower the histamines, and then that is removed from the body. But those are the two things I would try: kidney and liver, and you'll know pretty quick. Obviously, if it is an issue, then you need to look at removing the aged meats, the ground beef, or the offending compound.
Yeah, and I think to answer the question fully, I think you have, by the way, Richard. I'm much more of a fan of your answer.
I can see the probiotic side now. Yeah, sorry.
yeah. Well, the research says that they do decrease IgE levels. And as I've always saying with these numbers, someone will come in and they'll say, great, the numbers have gone down, haven't they? And I'm like, yeah, and you've got reduced eosinophils and everything that you would want. And I say, how do you feel? And they say, terrible. So, I think one of the things that we shouldn't underestimate is looking at your environment as well, other things that could trigger it. Because, if you're eating this way and 4 years later your asthma is worse, there may be something you haven't even considered, which has nothing to do with diet.
Mold toxicity. Good point.
So could be that. It could be cosmetics, so many things. And, diet is great. But it is all about inputs, which diet is an input, but so is your water. So is having tea, for instance, which has got fluoride in it. And the other thing is you've got to look at, what is asthma? So it's the bronchitis, contraction, basically, is trying to protect you from something. It's making the surface area smaller. That's literally what it's doing. But obviously it's problematic because you can't breathe. So whatever it is, your body is really reacting to. So, I would definitely look at what's around you as well.
I think incredible point, Steve. And yeah, credit, I missed it. I think mold toxicity is a big thing. It could also be, we see similar results from coffee. So Bethany, if you're a coffee drinker, it could be one of the mycotoxins in the coffee or the acrylamide. Another contributing factor to bear in mind is how do you cook your food? Do you like it like char grilled? Because that forms acrylamide. So barbecued food, for example, burnt things. So we don't want to be burning. I would rather see something cooked a little bit longer at a lower heat with some moisture in there rather than burning. That burning creates acrylamide, and acrylamide could be a huge contributor to this, which would give the same results as mold toxicity. So yeah, there's a crossover there, which could be worth looking into. But yeah, fantastic. Mold, big contributor.
Yep. There are so many things that this world is full of now that can be deleterious to us. So yeah, let's have a look. Yomi here is saying, will the school price stay the same if you have a monthly payment too? It feels like we put plants in, doesn't it, to sort of sell school to people? But no, these are all genuine questions. It is a good community, lots of good questions on there. And yeah, if you're a monthly payer, then it stays the same. Absolutely.
Forever.
All right.
Yeah. Once you get in, it will stay the same.
Yeah, and I've had people come in, then stop, and then regret it, come back and say, can I have the old price? I'm like, I'm really sorry, but no.
We can't change it. It's not a feature that's available in school, is it? You know, it's so yeah, unfortunate, but
yeah, once we do it, that's the price. But yeah, if it goes up, it goes up. For the new people, that's the only thing. Right. So Agent 99, did we answer this? Eggs cause me nasal congestion and puffy eyes. Can the egg whites be the culprit? Oh boy, yes. Absolutely. Yep. Oh, we'll go with that.
100%. It's egg whites contain overmucoid, which can be problematic. Eggs are incredibly beneficial if you can consume them. And I tend to find most people live in the lifestyle as they begin. Eggs are an integral part to their daily routine, and I don't see any reason to remove them until they start causing problems. But if you think that that is a problem, then take them out and see. But there could be a number of things going on with this. It could be an oxalate dumping issue. It could be a histamine response. So really drill down. I would do what's called a full elimination protocol. Rather than just removing one thing, I would remove everything other than fresh grass-fed beef and lamb for a couple of weeks and see how you get on, and then introduce things one at a time. The problem is if there are a number of contributing factors and you remove one thing, then by default, we tend to consume more of the other compounds that are left. So if cheese, for example, is causing an issue, or ground beef, and you increase the ground beef, then, because it could be a histamine response, for example, then we're none the wiser in regards to the culprit. So a full elimination protocol, and then introduce slowly.
Yeah, brilliant. We won't be able to do this question justice because we start our school group at 8 o'clock. William's saying how about the importance of carbs for muscle growth? Muscle growth from eating carbs after workout is higher than if not ingesting carbs, and I doubt gluconeogenesis produces the optimal amount.
False. Yeah. So look, and we can prove this with the research. The muscle protein synthesis is increased by 0 when adequate protein is consumed. So we would see further increase in muscle protein synthesis if protein consumption was low. But when we look at muscle protein synthesis when adequate protein is consumed, the difference between the carb and no carb is 0. What does increase muscle protein synthesis is the co-ingestion of protein and fat. Protein and fat. This is what allows the amino acids to enter the cells. Also see the increase in insulin from the leucine in the protein. Further consumption of the carbohydrate does elicit a higher insulin response, but once we need the right amount of insulin to create the muscle protein synthesis. Beyond that, there's no difference. What we see in some people who consume lots of carb is they'll retain lots of water. For every 1 gram of glycogen that they store, 3 to 4 grams of water are held in the muscle. So we appear a lot bigger. Also, what's going on is that insulin response is breaking the bonds on the glycerol backbone, sending fatty acids into the fat cell, which is causing a layer of fat. So this is why we see people from a typical bodybuilding perspective go through bulking phases, go really fat, and then they've got more to cut as they come into this. But yeah, we can get into this more next time or in school, which we are transitioning over to very shortly.
Yes, so, absolutely. That was what the white sheep's for. We've got a minute. We've got less than a minute now. So I just want to thank all the YouTubers for staying for the whole hour. It's really great. Thank you for the people on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure if you're on Richard's channel to double check you're subscribed and the notifications are hit. I hate to say all this, but we are losing subscribers that want to subscribe, and the same here. So please make sure that you click the like button or the subscribe button. I don't like saying smash. I think it's a bit stupid personally, but then I'm an old fart. So anyway, thank you, YouTubers. If you're going to be over in school, we'll see you in about 60 seconds. There is a link in the chat if you're not going to bother and you just like us on YouTube because, you know, times are hard. You haven't got the money. Totally get that. Totally get it. Just come and see us next week here in State Control Britain at 7 p.m. If not, we'll see you over at school. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you all. And